Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and we are starting something new this week. I've been wanting to try out this concept for a long time because I see the value of getting lots of different perspectives on this channel so that people can find the best information they can to navigate military life. And so this week we have our first panel to discuss military topics, and I am super excited to bring that conversation to you. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, I'm really excited about the new project that we're launching today. I've been wanting to do this and working on it for over a year, but it's been a struggle to have it all come together. And that's this. I want to put together military panels, group discussions between a variety of different military spouses on different topics so that we can get a wide variety of point of views and experiences all in one place so that people have the best resources and information possible as they navigate military life. And the very first one we're doing is going to be today. And I'm really excited about this one. In honor of Valentine's Day coming up, a listener suggested the idea of doing a How We Met Our Husbands kind of episode. And so my guests today for the panel, Erika and Maria and I, were going to be talking about military marriages, how we met our spouses, those sorts of things. I'm really excited to share all of this with you. And so let's just jump into the discussion. Okay. Thank you both for joining me. I'm super excited about starting this. I was talking to Erika a little bit about how I want this to kind of grow, and hopefully reach new military spouses, people who are just starting so that they can get that community and mentorship and support that they're looking for. So I wanted to start off, Maria. Will you introduce yourself, just a general introduction, and then how did you meet your husband and become a military spouse?
All right. All right. So I'm Maria. I am a life coach. I work mostly with military wives. I'm going back to school for my master's in marriage and family life counseling. My husband and I met when he moved a dresser for me. So we went on a date that same day and decided we'd get married. We got married 6 months later, and we'll celebrate 26 years this September. So I think it worked, but we're kind of crazy and a little bit of the exception. He joined the military after 9/11, a couple of years after 9/11, when I was pregnant with our third son. So his name is G.I. Joe, because my mom named him, thinking we were funny. And he was on the bus between basic and AIT when I went into labor. So there was no getting a hold of him. He couldn't get a hold of me because nobody was at my house. And he finally got a hold of somebody at my mom's house, and she's like, "Oh, you have a baby. Here's the number to the hospital." So that was our introduction to the military.
Oh, wow.
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 So,
Okay.
and I guess he retired May 1st of last year of 2024. So now we're kind of on the other side of figuring out civilian life, which is a whole new ballpark.
Yep. But you have a son who's still in the military.
Yes, my son Joseph actually joined the military, and he is married and stationed in Denver, Colorado. He's part of the Army, but he works with the Space Force.
Oh, okay. I know what group he's with. I know people up there.
So
Okay.
he likes to tell my husband that his security clearance is higher than his.
Yeah, that's a thing.
So we've gone full circle.
When you get my husband and his brothers together, they're always like, "Well, I did this training. Well, I've done that training. Well, it's always the whole pecking order." amongst the brothers about who's got the better career. So, okay, Erica, introduce yourself and explain briefly, yeah, same sort of things.
Well, my name's Erica, and I met my husband at church, actually. Um, I was a teen mom, was married previously, and naturally it didn't work out. We were just too young. And within very short period of time, I met my now husband at church, and we went through a really bad financial rough patch. He is an Air Force brat. My father-in-law retired at 20 years, and that conversation came into play of we need to do something. Um, I'm looking at our marriage in the long run when we are in our golden years, and I couldn't argue with that. So a very painful decision was made to him go active duty, not just guard. We didn't have post 9/11 GI Bill and all those benefits at the point that he joined. So it was a going to be a very permanent long-term decision. And we did out of survival means and some military pride in there too, serving our country that there's a little bit of that in there too. And yeah, not retired, but he was medically discharged in 2017. He did 13 and a half years. We were hoping we would do 20, then retire, then do the contractor GS thing. And unfortunately, those plans were drastically changed with an injury. I know life happens. And we have been on the other side of civilian life, kind of, sort of, because we ended up back here at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, which is where he was medically discharged from. But because there's such a heavily populated area of civilian workers, GS and contractors, he was able to find work in the federal workforce out here. So we came back just a year after him being out of the military, and we're back in this very heavily military populated area. So we like I call it DOD/military life. And we've been out here in total, if you include the active duty time that he put in and then civilian time, 11 years. So in total, we've kind of been in this gig for, I think we're coming up on 20 years this year or next year. Yeah. And we've been married 22 years. We just celebrated our 22nd anniversary, December of 24.
Yeah. It's I don't know who it was, but it was some family member. They're like, "Oh, you guys are going to be civilians again." I'm like, "You never become a civilian again." Like once you're a military spouse, you never really become a civilian again. It just changes the way you think and look at stuff and how you handle things. And so you
Mm.
just never really go back to being a civilian completely. Um, so my husband and I met initially in junior high, and um he wouldn't talk to me because he was too shy. And then we ran into each other again in college, and he actually looked me up, and I'm like, wow, I must have made an impression. Um, but we started dating and got married, and we were starving college students struggling to make ends meet, which was fine. It was just the two of us. But then we had our first son, and it was just, we were just not making ends meet. And he kept saying, I feel like I need to join the military. I feel like I need to join the military. He really had that like motivation. And I'm like, but do we really? Do we really? Why don't you pray about it? Ask God. Maybe we don't, because I didn't want to. And then finally he's like, why don't you pray about it? I'm like, because I don't want the answer. Like I already know what God's gonna say. I don't want to do it. But we were struggling so much, I finally sucked it up and we did it. And honestly, it's one of the best things that ever happened to our marriage, because I I can be a little clingy, or at least I was a little clingy
Mm.
with my husband. It taught me how to rely on him and work as a team, but then not be needy, because I was kind of needy when we first got married. I'm going to be honest, I was really needy. So you being married, being in the military is kind of complicated. So we all got married and then our husbands joined. Um,
Yep.
I think that is I've started meeting women who've married guys that were already in, and I'm like, wow, that's a whole different ball game. You knew what you were signing up for. We got married and then we got hoodwinked, but it's all worked out.
I
So
don't know if you
in
ever know
reg-
quite what you're really signing up for.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true too.
marriage is a massive roller coaster. So that's kind of what I want to talk with like this whole thing is going to be centered around is being married, military relationships and things like that. So when you were first new into the military and you guys were adjusting, your marriage is all of a sudden reaching this new phase. You had the whole surprise baby and can't get a hold of husband. I had the surprise I'm pregnant and couldn't get a hold of husband. So I found out the day at basic when they took my husband's phone away. That's the day I realized I was pregnant with our second kid and he had just left, but I couldn't tell him. So yeah, it was crazy. Like how did you guys handle that first transition, that first duty station, the whole he has to leave and you don't know when he's coming back?
I'm going back in my
Let's start
memory
with
bank.
Erika.
Um, okay, so a little bit more history. Uh, the part of the painful decision that had to be made in our situation was because the state that we come from doesn't have the best family law system. I was kind of backed into a corner. So I gave custody of my son to his father. What I didn't see coming was being stationed as far as Asia. I don't know why it didn't cross my mind. I think I had more Europe on my mind if we were to get stationed overseas. And even then, I just felt like, nah, like the chances were going to be pretty slim. And as luck would have it in this family, our first duty assignment was Okinawa, Japan. So that was I don't even I couldn't devastating and shocking. Um, and then the reality really setting in of the decision that we made, but there was no going back either because it was either homelessness and we couldn't go back to that. So we really had to just trust that God had our family and our broken family, you know, um, in his hands. So we got to Japan and it was rough. That was one of the roughest times of my life because not only was I adjusting to military life, but then it's military life overseas, and then add the family dynamic that you are away from your child. And he was like 4 years old. So we're talking, he was little. Um,
Mm.
I mean, we got through it, but it was absolutely no picnic. Um, and most couples, I think, just wouldn't even survive their marriage. I think a lot of marriages just wouldn't have been able to survive that. I couldn't tell you what. I guess it was just I think our faith was stronger than we realized. Like looking back now, I'm like, man, we had some faith. Like at the time, felt like the world was just like crashing down. But we definitely had something there that kept us going, and our initial relationship never really suffered. We've always I've always had a great relationship with my husband. We were like best friends, and um, yeah, it's just nuts. Like looking back now, so many years ago, and it's just like God, like we really went through that. Like, you know, and we survived. And now we're way on the other side of this, where the oldest is married, has his own family. He's in the army, grandparents. So it's just like uh, kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So, if one thing helped you the most through that hard time, what do you think it would you could say it was?
well, you're gonna laugh when I say it, but it would have been the base psychiatry center. I had an awesome psychiatrist, and the antidepressants definitely helped. Um, because you're going through something like that, and there was a lot more going on. I'm not going to get into. I think anybody who's out there who's divorced, has to co-parent. It's just rough waters. And then you add the whole military factor and the long distance anyway. But yeah, that definitely was a huge help. Um, and yeah, just our faith in God. We just had a really, really just strong faith, which is what attracted. That was the number one thing that we were attracted to about each other in the first place was our faith. That's why I fell in love with him. He has such a strong faith in God and the way he was leading me when we were dating. I was just like, I never want to be apart from you because you lift me up in a way I've never been lifted up before. And I guess he felt the same way. And it's just been that's all I can really say is our faith in combination with, the clinical side, because stuff like that's going to hit clinically. You're going to go through a great depression. And it can get very dark very fast when you're dealing with those life circumstances, as a parent. And um, but yeah, we didn't hesitate to go to the base psychiatry and get that side and combat from both ends, faith and clinical. And that's basically what got us through.
That's really yeah, that's a really good because I think we sometimes we feel like we can focus on one and it's good to have as much help as you can get. All
Yeah.
right. Maria, how was your transition? Like you had a baby, you were doing all this, like what helped you? What kept your marriage strong?
So we had 3 kids under 3. So when we went to our first duty station, because Joe was our third son. So we had 3 kids, 3 and under, which was a transition. And then right out of AIT, he was recruited right into the 160th, which is a whole different ballpark, a whole different dynamic. And he was like, no, 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 my wife will not handle this. And they're like, yeah, too bad. This is where you're going. Like it wasn't even an option. We did have in our contract when we joined that we would go to Fort Campbell. That was going to be our first duty station. And that's where the 160th is, one of the places. And so we get there, we have one vehicle. I have all these little kids, and he's taking it and doing long hour trainings with them because they do their own intensive training. And a lot of it was early in the morning till late at night. And our son, that was Joe, had constant ear infections. So he'd get home at like 11 o'clock at night and have to be back to work by 3 a.m. So between 11 and 3, I'm trying to go to the emergency room. And he finally finished, and we had a motorcycle, but we didn't know in the military, you can't ride a motorcycle till you take their safety courses. And so we're finally done with that part of the training. And I'm like, good, he can ride his motorcycle now. And the sergeant goes, no, you can't. He has to do this. And I just lost it. I was like, what the heck? I'm so tired of going to the emergency room. I can't do this. And just sobbing, like, I can't do this. And they're like, and luckily the sergeant's sweet wife was like, it's okay. We got you. We didn't know. We could have been helping you. And they had a handful of kids at this time. And she's like, it's okay. Did you know I can take you to the doctor in the middle of the day? My husband can come and pick your husband up and get him to, like, there are so many solutions here that we didn't even know about. And so I think for us, it was one, realizing that there are people out there who are going to help you, but being so new and just not knowing. And then, and then we did get finally, into our church family, and that helped. And one of the wives in there, her husband was in the 160th as well. And she's like, let me show you some things. Let me teach you how it's done. And he was a senior officer, but because our kids are the same age and we went to church, she really just came in and was like, look, and we were in the same little area. Towards the sergeant's wife lived on post and we didn't. We lived off base. We were 20 minutes from post. So for him to come and get him was really kind of a pain. It added a lot onto his commute. But being taken in and being mentored by people who had been there before. And so that's one of the things that I've tried to do. And then kind of like Erika talked about, having that faith, having that trust in the Lord and knowing like, okay, he's directing this. But they also kind of left him alone for a little bit. They didn't deploy him. They're like, let's not send him yet. But then he also, once they deployed him in different things, we had deployments where he came home and was like, I'm leaving in the morning. I don't know when I'll be back. So let's pack our bags. And it was right around that same son that who had been born. Well, his birthday was, so he left right before his birthday. And my friend was like, I have a half-eaten cake. Look, I'll cut it and I'll decorate it for you. And we'll bring it over and we'll do a birthday party before he leaves. And just that sense of community that you get, I think was really helpful. And learning to be a couple without family around. Like, how do we really learn to rely on each other? Because before that, we had been around family. And we're both the youngest, and we both come from large families. So it was a lot of, let me tell you how to do things. Let me tell you this, and let me tell you that. And so we really learned who we were as a couple. And I think that was really strengthening. Like, what were our things that brought us together, and figuring that out and how we could connect and making the family our own. And I think that's one of the best things that the military gave us. It showed us that we did have the strength to be alone, to learn to rely on each other, and that there's a whole network of people out there who you can learn to rely on that's not just your family. And I think that allows us to support other people better as well and to show up.
Yeah. Both of what you guys said really resonates because we, I grew up with a big, large, loud Italian family, and I was like, I'm used to a million people having opinions and telling me what I need to do with my life all the time. And Kentucky was our first duty station. We were 101st. But so for everyone who doesn't know, the unit that Maria's husband's with is Special Forces, and then that's a whole different ballgame than normal military. Special Forces have their own schedule. They disappear, reappear. They can't tell you jack about anything. It's a whole new level of stress, and to be thrown right into that from go is that's just blows my mind because we were in the same area and I knew women in that, and I'd hear their stories. I'd be like, my life's not so bad. I can take what I've got. My husband's not going to walk out the door in the morning, and I don't know when he's coming back. So, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of that always. For me, it was really hard. I am a planner. I like having a schedule and a routine. I like being able you can't plan as a military spouse, not really. Um, one of the phrases someone told me early on was that you can't, plans aren't set in stone, they're set in jello, firm but flexible. And that mental image was a huge, like, help for me because I would get so stressed out by not knowing what was going to happen and when. Okay, control freak. I will admit, I was a total control freak, and the army has helped break me of that. Because I can't control things. So I wasn't planning anything because I'm like, well, I can't plan anything. And then I was miserable. So I had to learn to plan and then just adjust. And finding mentors, finding other military spouses who are willing to like help you out. I think one of the best things that was ever said to me was I was super sick. I was pregnant when we moved to our first duty station. I was super sick. I was having a hard time um unpacking and getting the house all set up with a toddler pregnant and everything. And a sister from our congregation came over and she was like, okay, I can only help for a little while because then my husband and I have to go to counseling. And I'm like, you're in counseling? She's like, oh yeah, honey, you're a military spouse. Everyone needs counseling. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, but you're such a happy family. She's like, that's why we're a happy family. We go to counseling. I'm so glad she was like that with me because then when we got to a point where we were starting to have stresses in our marriage, I'm like, let's go to counseling because it's normal. Because that's how it was presented to me is it's normal. And I think if it had been presented differently, I may not have been so let's go do this. So that was ours. Again, I want to thank Erica and Maria for being a part of this experience. And we're going to be doing more of these conversations as we go along. The goal is to have one a month. And if you want to go ahead and follow Erica or Maria, I'll have their information in the description below. But Erica has got a YouTube channel with her husband showing the fun stuff that they're doing in Germany. And then Maria is a life coach. But I hope that eventually we can grow this to the point where we're doing this as a live stream and we can even take questions from all of you as you're listening. All that said, please like, subscribe, share this. It helps the algorithms. It helps this information and these resources get to as many military spouses as possible to do as much good as possible. And finally, as I always say, let's be the good we want to see in the world. I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.